In all of these courses, we talk a lot about unity and lack of separation and oneness, and in a sense, we all get it. We all know that, but we still behave as if we're separate. And there's no problem with that when it's free. When the separate I is free, the separate I can dance. It's the freezing of the separate I where we begin to suffer more. So, yesterday we worked a little bit in the afternoon with bringing our awareness to the movement of our consciousness through the mind. Also this morning, in the allowing of our attention, of our consciousness, to surround or become aware or open to a particular part of the body. There is a movement towards greater truthfulness. We don't need to do anything, that's the mind. It's enough just to be aware and listen, sense, just to be there. And this awareness is of a much more subtle nature than that which it is conscious of. So, for example, we go to the leg, and we are just aware of the leg. Without doing anything, there is a kind of harmonization that happens, a resonance between this pure awareness and the awareness or consciousness inside the leg, inside the more dense vibration. It's the same with an emotional contraction, with when we're in pain. When others are able to just hear it, just be aware of it, that's really enough. And of course awareness isn't trying to keep the contraction, the awareness is enough for it to express. To have that safety, that space to open. To go home to where it needs to go, to what's needed. So in the second exercise yesterday we worked with healing. In a sense, healing is a loaded word. It sounds like we're doing something. But it's actually much more opening the channel so that consciousness can do what it does through our physical, which in the end is the same as the physical of another. The mind doesn't need to know really what's going on. It needs to trust what's needed. And what's needed is always what is happening in that moment. There is nothing happening which doesn't happen outside of a need. Nothing happens in creation separate from a need. Every happening arises from a need. We don't have to understand it. But for better or worse, good and bad, pleasure and pain, each movement is a response to a need, and often the shortest, most direct, most healing response. Because the nature of creation is that if left to itself, it always takes the quickest way. From our minds it might seem like impossibly slow, but it always takes the quickest way. And we have to remember that the affliction that we suffer, or the pain, or the obstacle, that's just the tip of the iceberg, what we're conscious of. We can't oversee, the pain, the scream of pain is the last thing to happen. So there needs to be a lot of trust in a way that awareness is moving with need just by being there. Because it's moving below the level of what we can see, much more at the level of causes, at the root of it. And the root of it doesn't look so physical anymore. I say it doesn't look physical, it doesn't mean it's not physical. The physical's not left out. So the mind really gets in the way in its attempt to fix stuff, to do stuff. It's quite a gross in its nature. It's quite a vulgar, interfering thing. In the end, there are two options with life. One is to surrender, and the other is to resist. You can come in peace, or you can fight. But life is here for us. It's coming for us, each one of us, and through every cell of us, through the physical. So we can make it difficult, or we can go easily. We can always trust the body to survive in its genius of survival. The body knows better how to survive than the mind does. When we have an illness like a cough with lots of snot and stuff, we're like, oh, when I will be free of this snot, and it's all. And the illness is the snot. The illness is the coughing. But that's actually the symptom of the body healing itself. But we think I've got to get rid of it, and put all kinds of sprays and get rid of this snot, rather than bless this snot. Actually, when the snot. That's the mind. It's the mind, and it forms an attitude towards illness or to any difficulty, which is saying, this is the enemy, rather than this is my healer. This is my friend. This is here for me. And it applies on every level. So the physical dimension, and now I just talk very plainly and as if non-holily, is moving through three states. There's the solid state, of which ice, for example, is a solid state of water. But in particle physics, it's got a whole other density. There is the fluid state of fluidity, and there is the gaseous state. And all three layers are layers of the same thing. It's the same water, whether it's frozen or flowing, or whether it's a cloud. And it circulates. In the experience of being physically human, the fluid state is the most central dimension. The flow. The apparent movement of the waters. So we see this, how do we know that we have a physical body? We know it because of our senses, which are many, through our sense organs. And all the sense organs involve the element water. The element water is critical. The eyes are filled with water, conducting signals of light, processing impressions, which the brain then organizes as impressions from multiple perspectives, from all different points of view. The inner ear has water, which resonates, translating sound vibration into the sound that we hear. It's a bit of the cerebral spinal fluid inside the inner ears. The taste is utterly a function of the water in our mouths. The smell is a very, very subtle sensitivity to water molecules in the air. The touch is made possible, the sense of touch, through the water in the cells of our skin, including hot and cold. The sense of hot, the sense of cold. When we breathe in, we take in gaseous state, oxygen. And through our lungs it moves into the bloodstream, into the body. It becomes liquid. Each breath goes through this metamorphosis from air into the fluidity, the fluid dimension of the body, which then informs the bones, the cells, the organs, what we would call more solid aspects. So the body is 70% water, more or less. And it's a water which is in a constant circulation with the whole physical universe.
In Kabbalah, the appearance of God is water.
Yeah.
Can take any form.
Yeah. The water is incredibly soft. So when our consciousness flows, is allowed to flow, when it's allowed to be fluid, there is a softness in it. It can penetrate through the more solid states. Water will seep into the rock of the mountain, the bones of the body. So we are more water than we are solid state. So this moves really nicely together with this attitude of softness in how we touch ourselves or approach ourselves or how we approach another person. There is much more freedom in softness to move through denser vibrations, to penetrate. in the case of our consciousness, when it moves with softness, it's much more possible to pass through what can feel at first like a wall. You can just go through all the little gaps with softness and penetrate. This is how our sensing works, our more subtle sensing. Water is it's a conductor of energy. We know what happens if you put the toaster in the bath. So at lightning speed it conducts energy, which means that it's playing a major role in communication of ourselves with our bodies and between each other, beyond the private eye. The private eye. Never thought of that. So we know that there's water, the water of our blood and the moisture of our skin and the water of our cells, but there is another kind of water moving through the body, which, even though we don't know it, we have been working with throughout all of these years, and that's the cerebral spinal fluid. The cerebral spinal fluid runs in all directions and is perfectly still as well, just as water is perfectly still. It's perfectly still. You know, when you look at a river and it seems to be moving very, 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 very fast, and you really, really gaze into the river, it becomes clear that the surface is moving very, very, very fast, but underneath there is an increasing depth of stillness. The surface is reflecting. But when you plunge into even the most wild ocean and you go totally immerse yourself in the water underneath, it's a whole other feeling. There's a slowdown. There is another dimension to the dimension of the waves on the surface, where everything seems to be happening, but here down below, nothing is really happening. It's all a play of light and dark, expanse. It's another dimension. So the water circulates in all directions, meaning it goes where it's needed, of the cerebral spinal fluid. It's found around the brain and at the center points, the critical places between left and right brain, which means that this is not now conventional medicine. It's a theory, but it's also an experience that the water element, making a deep feeling contact with the water element, is incredibly helpful in giving the means, the alive means, the living means for right and left to communicate better, to come into harmony, for the neural networks to form according to what's the shortest possible route, what's most needed in that moment. The cerebral spinal fluid, the spinal cord, goes down to just below the navel, and then there are fibers. And this whole basis of the pelvis is basically cerebral spinal fluid, which then runs like a river up the spine. These bones of the spine, it's not just bones and wires, it's filled with fluid. The facilitator here is this cerebral spinal fluid, and into the brain, through the center of the head, the front, the back, the sides. It's connecting everything. And in this, a feeling of wholeness comes. Everything is there, one, still, perfect, in any one moment, just as water is. As Bart said yesterday, water is never separate from water. the cerebral spinal fluid is constantly renewing. There's something like 500 milliliters of it produced a day by the body. The body not as a separate body, through the environment, through the body. And 100 milliliters is present at any one moment, roughly. But it's constantly renewing itself. So it's utterly one with the waters on the outside, with the water molecules on the outside, the water of the environment, the water of the universe. And water goes, as we said, by, like all action in the physical, it goes by the fastest possible route, the route of least resistance. It goes precisely to where it's needed by the route which is most easy for it. There's an easiness about it. We don't need to do anything. Push the water here, build a dam here. Not necessary. Inside the cerebral spinal fluid is nearly no red blood cells at all. It's transparent. A few white blood cells, but if there were too many, it would be a disorder. It's very, very, very pure. Also inside the cerebral spinal fluid is the spirit molecule. The spirit molecule is what is in the DMT. That, according to where you come from, it's like LSD. What we make LSD from. So there's a belief that this is the molecule which facilitates communication with the wider universe, with the more subtle dimensions, guidance, visions, intuitions, knowings of a more subtle nature. Not knowledge, but knowing, recognition, impulse.
DMT molecules?
Yeah.
Is it the same as ayahuasca?
Yeah.
The same molecule that is active in
ayahuasca.
In the medicinal plants.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of it in the cerebral spinal fluid. So we talked yesterday and experienced yesterday how when we move our consciousness to a contraction or to the body, there is an effect. There is a lighting up. There is a movement. And we know this with our children, that when they hurt themselves and they come crying to you and you just put your hand on it, just that effect of consciousness, of mummy knows, the consciousness is as good as any drug. Later on, when we're adults, we make that into the doctor has to say, do, you know, but but it's this area of awareness, so much so that in a lot of indigenous cultures, the treatment for trauma is just listening in a group. So we are not created, our physical form doesn't reflect the separation that we believe ourselves to have. Separate bodies, separate people. We drink this consciousness from this shared pool of consciousness. We need it. When we are too long alone, we get contracted within our own form, which becomes more and more dictated by a mental thing. When we see other people, there is a opening of the shared consciousness, just like a healing. Difference is there, and within the difference, what's not different, the life, the consciousness is flowing also through us. It's refreshing. We need to be seen, and we need to see. And this is all about opening. Because if we don't open, we're not seen. And opening is, of course, about surrender. Getting out the way. The mind is like, in a way, the petals of a flower, and so it's never seen what's there on the inside, because it's like this. If the mind gets out the way, more of you is seen, which is blissful,
So you open up first, so the other one can see you. Or do you open up when the other one sees you?
Well, actually, it's even something. It's a third element, because consciousness. Consciousness is here, the most incredible ocean of all-powerful healing consciousness. Because we are conscious, but there is this ocean of potential, totally freely available, and we close down. And what happens when we close down the consciousness? We don't see the other. We don't see the trees for what they are. We don't see the colours. We don't taste. We don't experience. So the closing down, in the first place, is a closing down of our own consciousness towards the outside. And then we miss it. We say, I feel so alone. I feel so alone. I feel like I'm not seen. Because we're not seeing. When a channel opens, it's you see through it. So the only active movement we can do is to allow our own consciousness, our own experience, our own seeing. And in this we are immediately seen, first and foremost by ourselves, which isn't different from another. But then there is this opening of the shared pool, the shared consciousness. The feeling of not being seen, the solution is always to see. Don't feel seen, start looking, start seeing. Really seeing. Nobody gets left out of consciousness. You can say nobody is conscious of me, but we are consciousness. Even when others are conscious of us, we are conscious of that, otherwise it would be meaningless. It would really be the private eye, we wouldn't know we were being watched. The consciousness is always of ourselves, through us, intimately through us. And it meets the consciousness of the other, and there is this reunion and this expansion. So if we are too concerned with not being seen, then we're actually shutting out being seen. And often that comes forward when we really don't want to see something inside ourselves. We want to be seen like this, but not like, we don't want them to see the monster here. So we are not seeing even privately part of ourselves. But still it wants to be seen. So there's quite a movement beyond fear here needed. The courage to be conscious. To allow consciousness. And it doesn't have to be a social drama, it's the courage to allow consciousness inside our own bodies.
It is also a physical thing in trauma that you block visit.
Yeah.
So it keeps itself.
Yes, but also this is seen. In trauma what happens is that we freeze and we block the experience, but we move to the witness position. We witness it from a place outside of the body where it doesn't have to experience the blood and guts pain of it. But still it's seen. The witness becomes apparent with the retreat from the body. We're still watching. We're watching this body in trauma. We're watching this body contracting. We're watching this body freeze. So consciousness moves here.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, it gets the invitation to come back and to re-experience it when it's a bit safer.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's stuck there and your
Yeah.
vision stays there.
Yeah.
Physical thing.
Yeah. But it's a genius movement, dissociation.
Yeah.
And it's also it's like the call of life. Sooner or later, life calls back in. The longing, the passion, the love is too strong. It's by itself.
Why is it so hard to hear that invitation? To come back to the physical body again.
It's precisely what's needed in any moment. So if it's needed to stay here and to not come back into the physical body, then this is also okay. To witness life from here is also totally okay.
Okay.
But if there's a conflict, there is an invitation which is heard and there's a resistance, that's something else. And that's where we can really be of service to each other by creating enough safety and relaxation and a sense of, by removing some of the kind of really unnecessary contractions like guilt and self-condemnation and self-judgment, all of this mental stuff, by getting that crap at least out the way so that it's possible for the water to flow.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that there is an invitation because I never heard it. And there is so much longing to come back in the body, so that's why my question came.
Yeah, so it's a good course for you.
Sometimes an invitation is a scream of agony.
And I don't know the word agony.
Pain. The body really starts to scream agony, despair, pain.
Take care of me.
And basically this scream of pain, agony, despair is the invitation. There was a lighter invitation we didn't hear, and and the invitation gets stronger and stronger. So part of the suffering we feel is an invitation to please, please, please take notice.
I can't. Yeah, if I be honest, it is not there. There is a longing to go back, but all the way I'm there, then I really think things are great. Till the moment I come back, and then I realize, it feels like not in reality then, to look backwards. Because there's a longing to stay all the time of my life in reality, and then it feels like not reality, but maybe that's the crux. That's to be outside my body, I see it like not real, and it is.
You know, life is a total genius in what it gives us.
Mm-hmm.
When I had this kind of spiritual falling into emptiness, it was wonderful, and there was this fluidity, and this matter lost its solidity, and it was everything was temporary and changing, and all of this. And then some friends were coming to visit to our house, Yvette and Anita, and the house was a total and absolute disaster zone. And on the way down to the washing on the basement floor, there was loads and loads of clothes chucked, because it's on the way to the washing machine, so chuck it down the steps, and the cats had shat all over the clothes. And they were staying in the apartment down there, so they'd have to walk through all of this. So Bart was panicking upstairs, trying to make the toilet hygienic and the kitchen and everything, and I went kind of running downstairs to try and clear the way so that they can get into the apartment of Yedidia downstairs. Now it's all perfectly clean, like Ikea, but then. And so I went running down the steps, and I slipped on the clothes, vroom, smash, bang, onto the coccyx, broke the coccyx. Like thrown out of my body. And now the emptiness process was all about meditating on my coccyx.
Wow.
But there's some places a beer just cannot reach. It's like it's not, the consciousness wasn't going to be able to stay there somehow. So I broke the coccyx, and then for 6 months, and still there is this call of pain constantly to bring my awareness into the tailbone. This was pure voodoo. It was so needed. Like every time I sat down, when I would normally go into my stoned kind of hair, it's like there was the coccyx going, ah! The awareness had no choice but to be there. This is the kind of invitation about saying when the pain is telling you, come home, I need you, I need your attention, I need your care, I need your friendliness, I need you here. So you've experienced a lot of physical events like this,
Yeah.
so
that's
that you
true.
can take this as the invitation
Mhm.
to take care, to be there without trying to fix it. Like it's the cry of a child, the cells of the body.
And the moment before that, that's just accepting that it is like that I need maybe more time.
Everything that is acceptable.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, if I can say something,
Yes, okay.
it's really interesting because this is recorded, what you're saying,
Oh!
which is okay.
Also
I'm
what I say.
ashamed.
Which is, no, don't be ashamed. But it will be. It's good that it's recorded because you can listen again.
Yeah, because this is
Yeah.
with me in the trauma part.
I know,
Yeah.
and to listen again to it, you know, is almost every question you ask is an either or
Oh.
question, either here or there,
Oh.
either this or that, and this is exactly what you're saying. This is a trauma part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the trauma part there is an either or, there is a split. And the body doesn't function in either or. The physical doesn't function in either or. The physical function in and. It's and witness and the body. And the calling home is in an and, not in an either or, in the wholeness. In the oneness. This is the calling home from the physical. The physical is calling us home into oneness. Not in either consciousness or the body. And as long we are not able totally kind of to come home in the physical, we are not able really to reach this oneness.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a split.
The effect of consciousness is bringing to life. It's enlivening. It's unfolding. It's also deeply relaxing. And consciousness isn't something we create, it's something we can just allow. Allow ourselves to be here now. Allow the in-breath, allow the out-breath. Allow the physical sensations through the senses. It's all about allowance. We don't close our eyes in order to see, we open them. It's about opening the channels. When we believe that we are private, a separate private I, then we close the channel. It's that simple, on both sides. If we think we are the creators of consciousness, we are the source of life, then we close the channel behind ourselves. We cut off our power supply. If we believe that there's a gap between us and the other, we close the channel outwards in manifestation, in living, in breathing. We close down our own space, which is critical to relaxation. Opening requires space. It's very hard for a flower to open in a little box. It requires space, and the majority of restriction we feel is our own decision. I only have this much space. I only have this much time. We do it to ourselves. We hit ourselves with these limitations. We keep ourselves with our minds, consciously or unconsciously, in contraction. Which is fine, because life goes by the shortest route around us, but we become a bit of a living contraction. The consciousness is resonating with bliss. Resonating with blissfulness, with joy. That joy you see when the cows are grazing and they're all kind of lazy, then suddenly one of them starts jumping around and playing, and they all just, this joie de vivre, this natural joy, out of the body, the physical joy of being alive. It's available in every second. Out of the body, out of the cells. That junction of consciousness with the energy of the cell, the consciousness inside the particles. There's an enlivening.
do you want to say that again? Because you say consciousness is coming out of the physical.
When you break the physical down, you've got water molecules. This is actually two gases binding together. It's not actually, fluid is actually a bonding of hydrogen and oxygen. It's two spirits coming together as one. So even the water molecule is emerging. You break it down to the fundamental particles. Then what you've got in the electron and the proton and the neutron and the graviton we don't know, but I'm sure it's the same principle, is pure energy. Mm-hmm. So what this energy, also the energy that binds the oxygen and the hydrogen, then we're talking about something we know ourselves as.
That's the mystery of destruction.
So it's alive. It's totally alive. And one cell from my little finger can blow up the whole planet in its power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
0 point.
Yeah. So what's happening with joy is that there is life happening and there is vitality moving, and suddenly even in the cow in the meadow there is this, or a dog, there is this awareness of being alive, and this is joy. It's like the miracle, like the wow, in that moment, totally unconditional, and they start prancing around and frolicking and playing.
But has that to do with the contact you make with the bond between the particles? You say, I only ask you because I hear when you make the when you take them apart, the fluid particles, two gases, then the joy is coming. But what
the power, that's the power, the
you
potential.
You can be in bliss, or the joy can come out without. Only be aware that there is a bond between.
Yeah.
In the in between.
Yeah.
You connect with the in between.
Yeah. So in a way, the awareness is always there. The physical planet is aware. All physical matter is aware. Awareness, consciousness is always here.
No, that is not what I mean.
No, I get to it.
You say something.
So the energy expands, and it's a little bit like an orgasm, the joie de vivre. The energy expands and it explodes in a way, like vroomf, this movement upwards, and then it awakens.
It goes round.
Yeah, it awakens in this joy, in this dance of consciousness. So
So
now then the words collapse already. Energy consciousness, is it the same thing? Life consciousness, is it the same thing? But there is this movement, and part of the effect of this movement is what we would call physical consciousness, a sense of awakeness, a sense of, and it's very much moving through and behind and cutting through time and space. It's not caught in time and space. Those moments of joy when we're utterly free in joyfulness, they're timeless. There's no consciousness of the Dutch border when we're in a total joy, where we begin and where we end. It's just the space also collapses. It's a life beyond the restraints of time and space. And most of our suffering is feeling there is no time and no space for us. Believing that in the rationing of time and space. So what we did yesterday in slow motion, or tried to do and looked at and were aware of, was the movement of consciousness towards an object, like something inside the body. This in its slow motion is the movement of identification. To identify my kidney. To identify my hand. It's the building blocks of identity. To identify the body. In the realm of the solid state, where you have, me and the kidney, or me and the body, or the witness and the body, this is solid state stuff. You have two. You have subject and object. Then there's a high possibility of getting caught in this whole movement of grasping. So this is mine, 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 or pushing it away. I don't want this. These two movements is where we lose our freedom, we lose our space, we lose our time. This holding on to, or saying, I don't want this, this never happened, this is, kidneys not for me. In the realm of experience. But identity still needs to happen. This is how we connect, this is how we learn, this is how we move as different forms between and through each other. So the fluidity aspect, the allowance into our awareness of the fluids of the body, the fluids of the spine, of the brain, the fluids of the rain, the nature of the transformative cycle through the easiness of it, the lack of pressure in it. You know, ice can stay ice forever until it's not ice, but it was always water.
Mm-hmm.
There's no agenda in it, no agenda needed. So this awareness of fluidity brings forward the possibility which is identity fluidity. With an identity fluidity we can have this identity now and we can flow through it and we can move into another identity. We can be male, we can be female, we can be feeling identified with a particular state, but still with a fluidity we're able to let it go. And letting it go doesn't mean get rid of it. Letting it go means being able to hold it in a way. I'm in this state right now, but the moment we can hold it, it starts to flow. It starts to move. We're not keeping it. We're not grasping it. We're not contracting. And in this identity fluidity, there's a lot of softness. So the softness, for example, in a verbal translation would be, you know, I am, the difference between saying I am depressed and I am depressed right now. Or part of me is depressed right now. That's much more fluid. It's not holding something as eternal truth in time and space forever. You know. When our awareness contacts the liquids of our bodies, there is a resonance. And of itself, vibration moves into towards harmony. You see it in this YouTube video of the metronomes where they're all going, ticking randomly, and by the end of the video they're all going duk, 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 duk. So this is the kind of effect that our awareness of the fluids of the body is having. It's harmonizing, which is of itself deeply healing. It's harmonizing of a more subtle nature than Coldex and paracetamol.